Since the last time we talked to you, you guys went heavy in the portal in the offseason. What were you looking for in additions to the defensive side, and do you feel like you guys filled some needs that you had?
Yeah, I think the first thing I wanted to do was add some size on the defensive line. We just wanted to be a bigger team in the front. Our number one goal is to stop the run, obviously. So we wanted to add some guys in that realm. And then we wanted to add some linebacker depth in addition to that, and we added a corner, obviously, in Caleb Brown. We felt like that could provide some depth for us because we're pretty young at that position. But all those guys have been great additions and have had really good camps so far.
You mentioned the cornerbacks there. IBM joining that group with Lovett and Thomas Williams. What do you see out of that? And not a ton of game experience from the guys that were returning, but maybe some from the transfers that came in.
Yeah, talking about the guys that are returning, I think Lovett's done a nice job so far. He's a guy, obviously, that's kind of had his spots, prior to me being here. And then for the guys that are coming in from the portal, all those guys have had a good amount of game experience, which I think obviously helps. Anytime that those guys have played multiple years in different places in FBS games, obviously that's a big win. When you've done it and you've gone against good receivers, game in and game out, I think that's a treasured experience for a corner.
Dave.
And Sam, wanted to ask you about the linebackers. You mentioned bringing in Short, Santiago. How have they paired with J.K., Caleb, and the rest of that group as you're trying to figure out the rotation there and, I guess, bringing in some experienced depth as well?
Yeah, I think they fit in really nicely. Those two specifically, I thought probably had their best practices, the last day or two. Both of those guys bring different items to what we're asking them to do. Antoine's a little bit bigger guy, longer wingspan, can really run and open up. And Short's got great instincts in the box. I think he does a really nice job of finding and tracking the football, which is what we kind of saw on his tape when he was at North Carolina. So I think both guys have added a lot of value for us and have done a great job just kind of fitting in the room with those personalities.
Coach Bright talked a lot about how you guys have been up in a lot of different types of situational football.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's something that you're very used to in the NFL, coming from that background. What's it been like kind of installing it, and what goes into kind of teaching that and making sure the guys understand and grasp what you guys are teaching?
Yeah, it's important. It's really important. We've been doing it ever since the spring when I first got here. It's one of the first things we started to address. We understand the margin for victory is very slim, especially within this conference. You look at all the games that we had, there were one-score games last year. We want to make sure that we understand how to capitalize on those games. I think the other thing is to, even just today we had an example that came from practice. And sometimes the guys don't necessarily comprehend where those examples come from or how they're going to end up showing up. And we actually had a game that was when I was at Wofford, that it was the same exact thing that happened, a mistake happened. And I showed them and said, hey, look, we lost this game because of this situation. And what you're trying to put in perspective for the guys is you're understanding and learning from the past without having to relive it in the future.
Sam, you look at some of the defensive line we brought in, Ohash Fall and Emmanuel Hickman, who kind of played a little end at times. Mark Copeland's a guy who seems like his skill set could allow him to play. Do you envision using some multiple fronts and some bigger fronts where you flex out some of those tackles at times?
Yeah, I think the game nowadays, you have to do a really good job of adapting to who you're playing. I think all of those guys give us the ability to adapt to the opponent that we're playing. I think that's obviously very important. All those guys have, again, like I said, have done a great job of kind of coming in the room and putting themselves in good position and helping us. And they've all had, pretty good practices leading up to this point. But I think to answer your question, I think they're going to fit nicely with what we want to do and what we want to accomplish, and I think they're going to be able to have a lot of success, especially based on what they've done in the past.
And then you get Noah Chambers arriving here this summer. I think there was one hit where we saw one drill where he just blew up a running back and into the coach as well. What have you seen from him since his arrival?
Yeah, Noah's done a nice job. You know, he's going into just, it seems like only a couple of weeks of actually being here on campus. But he's done a really nice job of adapting to kind of what we're doing and what we're asking him to do. I mean, he's made mistakes at times, just like all the other rookies or freshmen have, but at the same time, he's done a really good job of being able to erase it and move on to the next play, and that's something that we really talk about a lot is, you know, the mindset portion of the game. I don't think it gets addressed enough. In each mini camp that we've had, we've talked about what is our mindset for this mini camp or these 3 practices, right? And then once we feel like we've accomplished that, we're moving on to the next couple. All right, now what's our mindset for these next few? And we're trying to dive deep into what that psychological piece is for our players.
All right, we got 3 more in the room before Zoom. David, and then Nick and David too.
Coach Price said Caleb Woodson arguably has one of the best motors on the team. What have you seen from him in his growth? He started last year for the first time. This offseason, just his preparation. Now he's gained some experience on the field. Have you seen that kind of push him more this year?
Yeah, I mean, his preparation is second to none. I actually had him get in front of the defense yesterday and talk about what his routine looks like. We try to talk to our guys about consistency in the long term and not motivational in the short term, and understanding what that means over the course of, you know, not only training camp but the longevity of the season. But Caleb's somebody that lives his day, you know, 1 minute at a time, and lives within that minute, which I think is extremely valuable for our players to understand. What he's gotten better at, I think, is just playing the position, his instincts in the box, understanding when to pull the trigger. He's a guy by nature that wants to go fast all the time. So sometimes it's learning how to slow down a little bit and being able to play to those strengths. And we had that conversation yesterday that, you know, he's fast enough and has a good enough motor where if he just slows his feet down a little bit, he's going to be able to accelerate and make a lot of plays just due to, you know, how hard he plays.
Nick, and I'll finish with David.
What's the most important trait a player needs to have in your defense?
Well, the one that we ask for him, bar none, is playing with great effort or motor. It's the most important thing. We believe that we will win games, you know, plural or multiple, due to just playing hard. It's something that, you know, we don't negotiate on. We make sure that our guys are able to do that. But I think playing with that type of effort, fanatical all the time to the ball, it can erase mistakes that happen, or it can erase, you know, a bad call that might occur, because that's going to happen as well.
Last one, David.
What was the situation at Walford that you instructed the team?
You're going to make me relive it now a third time. Yeah, so there's about 25 seconds left versus Wyoming. It's 4th and 4. The ball's on the minus, or excuse me, the plus 12. We had a pressure on, and the outside linebacker is supposed to peel with the back. He doesn't. They get a first down. They score 2 plays later. Our offense only has 7 seconds to go, and we lose the game. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.